Hi everyone, I'm Kim Nelson. Here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from the Vatican. On the Easter Monday public holiday in Rome, Pope Francis addressed thousands of Italians and tourists gathered in St. Peter's Square for the Regina Coeli, the Easter season Marian prayer. In his remarks, the Pope said that Jesus' resurrection means the last word is not the tomb. It is not death, it is life. The Pope added that Mary's silent witness of the death and resurrection of her son Jesus can help believers be clearer signs of his love and life in the world, so that those experiencing tribulation and difficulty do not become victims of pessimism and defeat or resignation, but find support and consolation in brothers and sisters of the faith. In news from Rome, on Good Friday, the Pope once again led the way of the cross in Rome's Colosseum. It is a tradition that began centuries ago with Pope Benedict XIV and was only recently revived by Pope Paul VI in 1964. This tradition helps the Church every year to remember the Christian martyrs, but there was at one time another plan to have a permanent remembrance of the martyrs actually built inside the Colosseum. That and many other stories and artifacts are on display at the exhibition in Rome called Colosseum, an Icon. Rome Reports has a look inside the exhibition.
This is the church that was to be built inside the Colosseum dedicated to Christian martyrs. The project was never carried out, but it would have forever transformed this symbol of Roman culture. There is a beautiful model that shows a shrine to the Christian martyrs, designed by Carlo Fontana, that would have forever transformed the Colosseum's atmosphere into a Christian dimension, celebrating these Christian martyrs, but it only remained in the project phase. Though the church inside the arena was never built, every Good Friday the Colosseum remembers these Christian martyrs by holding the Way of the Cross presided over by the Pope. These and other stories explain the Colosseum, an Icon exhibition, in which the Colosseum, for the first time, is explaining itself. This time we wanted to tell the story of the Colosseum's image, a powerful and very strong image. It is a name that has been imposed throughout centuries, in millennia, as the name of a unique place. With this exhibition, we are trying to go through its life, because it is really a life that lasts 2 millennia, a monument that has changed its functions many times. Functions include, for example, being a family home during the Middle Ages. These remains bear witness to it. Inside the Colosseum, hundreds of people who used these vessels and jugs, discovered during excavations in the 19th century, worked, traded, and lived. Really, the shape of the Colosseum, the architecture of the Colosseum, is stronger than its own function that has changed so many times over the millennia. The Colosseum was a factory, a loom, hospice, stable for animals, quarry, and, after the 14th century earthquake that destroyed half of it, even a fortress. In fact, there were these colossal statues and chapiters that were part of its decoration, which are now carefully preserved as stone witnesses of all the structure's past life. The exhibition also talks about its future life, as this structure's potential has inspired artists and architects of all times, even so far as to imitate it. This is the case of the so-called Square Colosseum, an attempt by fascism to be used as a symbol of Rome. Benito Mussolini ordered it to be built for the World's Fair of 1942, which was never celebrated because of World War II.
Looking now at news from around the country in a follow-up to a recent story we told you about, a federal judge issued a preliminary injunction April 15th to stop the state of Arkansas from executing a group of death row inmates after a lawsuit was filed on behalf of the inmates claiming the executions were unconstitutional because of their rapid pace and ineffectiveness of the lethal injection drug midazolam. This injunction follows a ruling by an Arkansas judge who issued a temporary restraining order on the state's executions after 2 pharmaceutical companies filed a lawsuit suggesting the state may not have obtained midazolam properly. The state and federal judges' rulings are both under appeal by the state. A significant delay in these arguments could indefinitely halt these executions, since the state's supply of midazolam will run out at the end of the month, and state officials have no access to further supplies. But even with the court-issued stays, the executions are still possible if the cases are sent to the Supreme Court, and it sides with Arkansas in its appeal. Arkansas officials originally scheduled 8 executions from April 17th through the 27th. 2 of the inmates were granted stays of execution outside the federal judge's April 15th decision. In news now from Italy, the G7 summit taking place in Italy in just a few weeks. Many are speculating as to whether or not President Trump will visit the Pope while he's in the country. Rome Reports takes a closer look at what the president might do.
With only 6 weeks before Trump visits Italy for the G7 summit in Sicily, Vatican officials state that he has not yet asked to meet with Pope Francis. This expert in political science and international affairs at John Cabot University in Rome explains why he thinks this is.
What I think the Pope, what I think Trump's strategy is vis-a-vis the Pope is to sort of keep the Pope at a distance, don't anger him, and do all sorts of political policies which he knows most Catholics would be in favor of.
This distance would definitely be noticed since Pope Francis has met with countless political and religious leaders from around the world during the 3 years of his pontificate. Trump
is an unpredictable president. His policies are unpredictable, so we're not sure, right? And so is the Pope. So the Pope could do something that, in an unpredictable way, which could cause an unpredictable response from Trump. Trump would be the first U.S. president since Franklin D. Roosevelt not to pay a visit to the Pope during his first trip to Italy. However, Vatican officials are still waiting to see if he reaches out at the last minute to join the long list of American leaders who have all come to personally meet the leader of the Catholic Church.
And finally in the news, a grassroots effort which began in January is closing in on its goal to see 1,000 masses celebrated around the world on May 8th, the birthday of the late Archbishop Fulton Sheen. As of mid-April, there were about 900 churches which had pledged to celebrate a mass in memory of Archbishop Sheen. Organizers say that the idea for the masses is to not only celebrate the Archbishop's life, ministry, and legacy, but also to storm heaven with prayers for his canonization. Archbishop Sheen was ordained a priest for the Peoria Diocese. He was National Director of the Propagation of the Faith from 1950 to 1966, Auxiliary Bishop of New York, and then became the Bishop of Rochester. Pope Benedict XVI granted Archbishop Sheen the title Venerable in 2012. If he is canonized, he would be the first U.S.-born male saint. And that is all the information we have for you at this time. I'm Kevin Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week. The Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV Network.